Hello and welcome back to the Quick Slant on Green Bay Packer Nation and greenbaypackernation.com. Today we're going to be talking about by the numbers. We're going to reflect back on the game against the Cleveland Browns briefly, and then we're going to move on to talk about some of the stats that might factor into the coming matchup against the Carolina Panthers. So stick around. So as we start discussing the past game against Cleveland, we of course for weeks have been focusing on Brett Hundley. He again struggled a bit in this game. However, pretty impressive closure for his stretch as the starter of the Packers. He did complete 76.1% of his passes and of course scored 3 touchdowns, but he also added 31 yards on the ground, and that was a 4.4 yard average. So that was pretty impressive on Brett's part. As I said, he still struggled, especially on his shots downfield. If he could dial in that part of his game, he could start legitimately making a case for being a starting quarterback in this league. Unfortunately for Brett, fortunately for Packer Nation, his opportunities to show that he can strike downfield have kind of dwindled now, but that really is the only part of his game that he really needs to dial in, I think. He continued really connecting well with Adams. He connected with Adams on 10 passes for a total of 84 yards, but what was more impressive to me and what I thought was a great part of the game plan against the Browns was how many times he connected with Williams out of the backfield. He threw to Williams, or completed 7 passes to Williams out of the backfield, and that was for 69 yards. Williams averaged 9.9 yards a completion, catching passes out of the backfield, so definitely was a huge factor in continuing to move the ball downfield, continuing to keep the clock rolling on our side, and keep our defense off the field. So that was pretty impressive. Speaking of defense, we did have 2 interceptions in this game, which it's always exciting to see turnovers. However, we definitely needed them in this game because we also gave up 345 yards of total offense to a not good Cleveland Browns team. And that included 136 yards on the ground. I'm not sure how many total yards Crowell had, but he was over 100 yards on the day, and he averaged 6.4 yards a carry, and that just was actually a shock for me in light of the fact that it's been the Packers' pass defense that's struggled all year, and our run defense has been not outstanding, but kind of the bright spot on the defense. So for us to give up 6.4 yards every time Isaiah Crowell touched the ball just really bothers me going down the stretch. We completed 8 of 16 third down conversions and 2 of 3 on fourth down. So that was a total of 10 conversions on third and fourth down, which means we had 14 conversions on first and second down. So far more first downs from first down or second down than we did in third and fourth down, which means that when we were striking pretty quickly and early. We weren't just eking out yardage and converting on third down. We were doing a good job of chewing up some chunks of yardage as we moved the ball down the field. And again, a baffling statistic for me. Back against the Buccaneers, I just figured with the defense on the field for 74 snaps, and the time of possession, I don't even remember the discrepancy in time of possession, but Tampa Bay had the ball far longer than the Packers did, and I just figured that the defense kind of got tired, and that's why they started to play poorly. However, unfortunately, in this game, we had 8 minutes more in time of possession, and the defense still struggled. So again, I'm kind of getting worried about this defense down the stretch, and I'm hoping that Aaron Rodgers coming back just kind of excites our defense to really turn it up a notch. So let's move over to the game against Carolina that's coming up this Sunday. The Panthers are number 3 in the league in sacks. And with Aaron Rodgers coming back for his first game after breaking a collarbone, this stat kind of concerns me. We've got Julius Peppers on the other side of the field, on the other side of the ball this time. And, this Packer offense has seen Julius Peppers plenty of times. So I think of any team that has a chance to slow him down, we probably would have a pretty decent chance. However, we've been giving up a lot of sacks this season. I think 43. We're one of the most sacked teams in the league because, quite honestly, I mean, we all know our offensive line has just been really in disarray. Down the stretch, the last few games, we've had a consistency in the offensive line, which hopefully will help coming into this game, but that's definitely something we're going to have to keep an eye on, is the fact that Carolina is ranked number 3 in sacks. So that means that Aaron's going to have to get the ball out quickly, and, maybe he'll be able to buy some time that other teams have not been able to do, because we all know Aaron does that probably better than, I wouldn't even say probably. He does that better than any other quarterback in the league, keeping the play going and drawing out the time to give his receivers some time to break off defenders and get open. The question that I had about this game, in light of the fact that our defense kind of is really struggling, was, will this game be a shootout? Carolina's actually averaging only 23.1 points per game over the season. However, if you start after the game against the Bears, where they were just completely out of sorts, they only scored 3 points against the Bears and lost. But since that time, they've actually been averaging 26.8 points a game, which to me says that with our defense playing the way we've played recently, and really all season long, it's going to be up to Aaron Rodgers and the offense to score. We're going to have to probably score plus 30 just to have a chance to win this game. Unless, like I say, unless somehow our defense gets ignited over the fact that Aaron's back on the field and starts really turning it up a notch, which we can do. Here's the weaknesses that I see in Carolina. On offense, I think their weakness is passing. They're ranked number 22 in the league in touchdowns scored passing. Part of that is because they've been scoring on the ground, and so you have to kind of factor that in. But if you watch, I watched the Carolina Vikings game, but that was kind of an anomaly. There was a lot of crazy plays going on, several turnovers that I don't think were indicative of how the Packers-Carolina matchup will play out. But if you go back one game farther to the Carolina versus Saints game, I think that is much more the matchup that we'll see when the Packers take on Carolina. And in that game, Carolina, the Saints got some pressure on Cam Newton, and he made some mistakes passing the ball. And I think that's what we need to do. We haven't been getting pressure on a lot of quarterbacks lately, but we do need to get pressure on Cam. We really just need to shut this run game down and keep Jonathan Stewart at bay and force Cam to throw the ball, and I think that's where he'll make his mistakes. So that, I think, is their weakness on offense. On defense, I think Carolina's weakness on defense is in the run game. In that Saints game, Ingram averaged 6.1 yards a carry, and Kamara averaged 6.7 yards a carry. So these guys generated quite a hefty amount of yardage on the ground. And those two backs really resemble the two running backs the Packers have in Williams, who is the bruiser, much like Ingram, and Jones, who is kind of that scat back, that quick back, much like Kamara. That said, Williams is still really playing quite well, but in the game against Cleveland, Aaron Jones was just really nowhere to be found. They gave him the ball 4 times. He was able to do absolutely nothing with it, and ended up with a -2 rushing yards. Part of that was holes closing down, but that isn't the whole answer as far as I'm concerned, because as we saw, even on just the single run he had against Tampa Bay, he's been very good at seeing that a hole has closed up and bouncing to a different hole and making something out of nothing. I'm not sure what happened against Cleveland, but hopefully Aaron Jones can kind of bounce back to be more like what he was when he was carrying the load when Williams was out, and be that more elusive back, and then we can have that 1-2 punch that we would really like to have against Carolina, because it seemed to work really well for Ingram and Kamara when the Saints met the Panthers. So those are the stats that I think will play into this game, and I would love to hear what you think about the coming game, what you think is going to factor into what should be a Packer win, or what's hopefully a Packer win. And definitely, if you're new here, we'd love to have you subscribe. Definitely hit that bell icon to get notifications every time we post a video. And until tomorrow, when we do our Prediction Friday, go Pack.